And as always, joining us right now is Eric Alwan, the voice of Sunland Park Racetrack and Casino. As you can tell, folks, Eric is bundled up today. It is a chilly, chilly day, and it's going to get colder and colder this week. But hey, man, that's, I said it before, and I'll say it again, Eric. It's February. I am not ready yet for 90, 100-degree weather. That's not me. I'm okay with this. Give me a little more winter after all. Poxitani Phil, he predicted 6 more weeks of winter, and it's exactly what we're having. And, man, you look like you are dressed and ready to go for what will be a chilly day of racing.
Hi, Cappy. Well, let's just put it this way. The old press box shack doesn't have a lot of insulation, so... And you know how frail I am, but
please, it's not like
day.
It's not like you're 90, Eric. You're not that much older than I am. So give me a break. Do you have a space heater out there in the press box? Do we have a space heater? Anything?
You're gonna have to help me find it.
Yeah, I figured as much. That's good.
And I see snow on your Franklin Mountains, Steve. I do. I see it.
You know what? They're your Franklin Mountains too, Eric.
I know.
I love that.
Sorry that we missed last week.
Man, it's okay.
Well, we
got a lot of catching up to do. Matter of fact, let's catch up and talk about what happened at the $100,000 La Coneja Stakes a few weeks ago with Quattro, who ended up getting the upset win. But, I mean, when you've got Luis Fuentes on the jockey and on the ride, is it really an upset? No matter what the odds are, sometimes you've said it best. You wager trainers and you wager great jockeys because they can sometimes make all the difference in the world.
Sure seemed to that day, Steve. Luis Fuentes was named on the horse like the day of, so there was a late change. But there was a lot that went into that race beforehand because our cover girl, one of the best horses of last year, Belladonna, came up not feeling well that morning and scratched. And she was one of 2 horses in the race trained by Simon Beechler. And what do you know? Simon put Luis Fuentes on Quattro, and Quattro had a career best performance. And you're right. I mean, with Luis Fuentes aboard, it certainly makes the horse have a better shot. She had hinted at some ability. She was second in the New Mexico State Racing Commission handicap on opening weekend. So she already put herself sort of into the framework of the conversation. And there was no Belladonna to worry about. So I guess that sort of gave her a shot. A couple of horses made good runs at her. Corinna dove towards the rail and was closing, but kind of came up short. And then Bikini Time, the horse that defeated Quattro in the Racing Commission handicap, she was actually in front of Quattro at the top of the lane, but couldn't put her away. And, I don't know how much longer we're going to be able to hold on to Luis Fuentes. He's that good. And he's that professional. And gosh, I think he's got already a handful of stakes wins already, Steve. And we're only halfway through the season. So he does make a critical difference, especially on those close finishes. But Quattro won pretty handsomely. And I think she paid about $18.
Nice. That's really nice.
That's a good payoff.
What about the day before? The Star Western Wear Stakes, the great Todd Fincher did it again. And this is a seasoned veteran horse. I mean, you talk about Freedom Flash, 7 years of age, and has had a chance to win 7 times. So maybe lucky number 7 all the way around for the son of First Moon Flash at that Star Western Wear Stakes the day before.
What a gritty horse that one is. He's half thoroughbred on the mother's side. So it lends itself very well that he would like 870 yards, and he's made a whole new career going that distance after being a pretty good stakes horse going shorter. And he's owned by the Amistoys, who are legendary horse owners in this state. And, Todd is really great at picking these right spots. And all Freedom Flash has to do is enter these New Mexico bred 870 stakes. They're not all that frequent, but each track has them. And I think you're going to see him continue to win this season, and he doesn't mind going wide. He doesn't mind passing horses. So he has a lot of versatility about him. And, a really good jockey for 870 has turned out to be Alfredo Segala, maybe a name that we haven't talked about all that often on our shows, but he's a really good rider that fits this type of a quarter horse. And he's a really good thoroughbred rider too. But, all hail that really nice horse, Freedom Flash.
No stakes races this past Sunday because of the Super Bowl. I think that made a lot of sense, not trying to compete with the big one.
Can't beat the Super Bowl.
No, you can't. But you did have the 20th running of the $100,000 Mesilla Valley Speed Handicap on Saturday and Diaz's Daylight. And tell me a little bit about Jaime Aldavaz Sr., because this is someone that not only trains horses, but owns horses and ended up getting that big win on Saturday.
Maybe not a high-profile name, Steve, but a long-standing name here at Sunland, and he owns and trains his horses. And you know, he's particularly good. I've seen him with thoroughbreds too, but he seems to do it maybe just a touch better with the quarter horses. And this was a horse that I couldn't have handicapped, but I got to give a tip of the cap to our paddock hostess herself, Julie Farr, who does such a great job on our television signal. She liked the Ace's Daylight a whole lot. And you know what? I think Julie actually picked Quattro too. So Julie's been extremely sharp on her selections, and she liked the Ace's Daylight. You know, being the old favorite chaser that I am, I thought that HS Paul Walker was pretty much unstoppable. But like we see so much in horse racing, you know, they can't always deliver their A games. So this was a situation where, you know, Jaime Aldavez was able to get the Ace's Daylight in a good position. He hired Adrian Ramos to be his rider. That's an All-American Futurity winning rider. And I think his training talents and the jockey's talents kind of got this horse up when maybe HS Paul Walker maybe wasn't at his sharpest. You know, he didn't show that keen speed that he showed winning the Red or Green Stakes. And this is a horse that the Ace's Daylight that maybe did deserve a shot and finally did come to the fore with a superlative effort.
Track Talk with Eric Alwan, the voice of Sunland Park Racetrack and Casino, continues this week here on 600 ESPN El Paso. We're going to talk about the Enchantress Stakes in a little bit. But first, the beauty of this segment is sometimes you give us little nuggets, things that are happening around the horse racing world that we get to talk about for the first time here during this segment. And I understand you've got some news relating to the Mind That Bird Derby that you want to share with us here today, Eric.
Thank you, Steve. The Mind That Bird Derby is going to be our final local prep for the Sunland Derby. We had the Raleigh Allison Derby about a few weeks ago, and it was won by a Turf Paradise horse called One in Vermilion. We probably will see him again, maybe in the Mind That Bird Derby. But if there ever was a big day for our fans and listeners and viewers to come out to Sunland, it's going to be February 26th. Because that's the day of the Mind That Bird Derby, and there's a whole lot of other stakes races that are going to be on that bill too. But I've been told by Dustin A. Dix, our director of racing, this morning, that Federal Expressed in today were nominations from both Bob Baffert and Doug O'Neill. So that's kind of a new twist. Sure, we see them for the Sunland Derby, but do we always see them for, you know, a lead-up race? No, sir. So they're that serious. And they want to get a horse or two maybe ready for our Sunland Derby. And the Mind That Bird Derby is a great way to get prepped, you know, and a lot of money, $100,000. So I'm curious to see and dive into what horses that they are bringing. But
have we ever had Baffert? Have we ever had Baffert versus O'Neill in the past at the Mind That Bird Derby, like we have for the Sunland Derby?
You know, I'm not sure, Steve, but possible they could have collided in the Sunland Derby because O'Neill's won it 3 times, right? And he won with Slow Down Andy last year in the Sunland Derby, and he won our very first Sunland Derby with an Excessive Pleasure. They might have collided at a certain point in time. They're two of the winningest Sunland Derby trainers in the history of our race. You know, Bob Baffert's won it a whole slew of times too. But I'm really excited to see those type of names getting serious about running in, you know, in the Mind That Bird Derby, because we already have a pretty good cast of locals, and I'm sure Todd will have maybe a couple of more new runners for us, and that of course is Todd Fincher. You know, Todd is now the leading trainer. He is kind of moved slightly past Flaco Capalucci in the trainer standing, so his barn's really heating up. We just talked about him with Freedom Flash, you know, on the quarter horse ledger, but you know, when you offer $600,000 for any race, and it's a graded one, and it leads to a berth in Kentucky Derby, it's amazing how much response you get. And that's what the Sunland Derby is meant to this racetrack.
No, that's terrific. Again, the Mind That Bird Derby, the 22nd running will be Sunday, February the 26th. It's a mile and a 16th. And as you mentioned, Eric, and alluded to, that is the final prep before the big Sunland Derby. I'm excited about that. I'll give you one other little note. I was at Radio Row last week in Phoenix, caught up a little bit with Jim Rome right before he went on the air on Friday morning. And we talked about his trip to Sunland, which he said was terrific, and loved the experience of coming here on 2 different occasions. But he talked also to me about how stacked that Sunland Derby race was in terms of quality. And he just, I guess it humbled him a little bit, because as excited as he was to win the Mind That Bird Derby, he realized that the Sunland Derby is a whole nother level because of those coveted 50 points you get towards the Kentucky Derby.
We were so appreciative that he would bring us a horse, and he won that Mind That Bird Derby in dramatic fashion. I don't know what happened to him in the Sunland Derby, Steve. Something might have happened. So I don't know that he ever raced again. So maybe it wasn't his commensurate, ability that he showed in that race. But to have Jim Rome here at Sunland, it meant so much to us publicity-wise, marketing-wise. It was a wonderful, association that we had, and we hope to maybe see him again here.
I hope so.
At Sunland. Jim Rome's won, I think, 2 or 3 Breeders' Cup races, so he's no stranger to the big time of the thoroughbred world, and he meant a lot to us, and we appreciate him.
Tell me about the field for the 13th running of the Enchantress Stakes this Sunday. 100,000 guaranteed for 3-year-old fillies. It's a mile race. Give me a little preview, Eric.
You remember we talked about the La Senora Stakes about a month ago, and that was a race where Todd Fincher had a couple of horses, and the one that won it was Doer, Not a Faker. I think that was the name of it. Beat Hannah's High Life in that race. So they'll sort of retangle. But what makes this race different is that it's not a sprint. They're going to have to go a mile. It's a non-Lasix event as well. So it's going to be very strategic. You can't just blast out of the gate and go very quick the first half mile because you won't have anything left. But Todd has excellent stats going from a sprint to a route, and he's got Doer, Not a Faker through the rail on Sunday in the 8th race, and has assigned Luis Fuentes the mount. So I would imagine he's going to be the favorite. Todd has another one in the race called Pandora Who, but this one's going to be trying some stakes company on that afternoon. Looks like an interesting race.
Man, what a great segment as always, Eric. I mean, we've flown by already. Can you believe it? It's already been another rapid fire edition of Track Talk. So much we've covered, so much more coming up. You got to stay warm out there. I mean, I'm telling you, I'm looking at you right now. Keep yourself warm. Good. Good. Yeah, the scarf would not be good calling a race. It could affect the vocal cords. We got to free up the vocal cords.
Sure could. And when we meet next week, I'm going to tell you who's running in the Mind That Bird Derby. So that'll be fun next week.
Love it. Until then, take care. Thanks for the time as always, Eric.
Bye, Steve. Thank you.